The stars above Luna looked wrong that morning. Jake Morrison had been stationed on Sentinel-7 for 3 years, and he knew the sky like he knew his own face. But now something was different. Hundreds of dark shapes hung in the blackness where nothing should be. Jake pressed his hand against the cold glass of the observation deck. His breath fogged the window. Behind him, alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed across every screen in the station. The computer's voice was calm, but the words made his blood run cold. Unknown vessels detected. Count 743. Distance 3 million kilometers. Configuration: military. 700 ships. Jake had never seen more than 5 vessels in one place. This was an invasion fleet. Someone was coming to Earth, and they were not here to talk. Far away on one of those dark ships, War Master Theln looked at his display screens with satisfaction. The blue planet turned slowly below him. It looked peaceful, beautiful, weak. His intelligence report said the humans were primitive. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. They still fought wars among themselves. They had no unified military. This would be easy. Theln commanded the Kyvex hierarchy, a coalition of 7 alien species. They had conquered 17 worlds. Earth would be number 18. He tapped a claw against his command chair and opened a communication channel. "Broadcast our message to the planet," he ordered. "Give them 48 hours to surrender." On Earth, billions of people stopped what they were doing. Every television, every computer, every phone showed the same image. A tall creature with gray skin and too many joints stood before them. Its voice was translated into every human language at once. "People of Earth, we are the Kyvex hierarchy. Your planet has resources we require. You have 48 hours to surrender your world. Lay down your weapons. Submit to our authority. If you resist, we will destroy your cities. We will kill billions of you. We have done this before. We will do it again. Choose wisely." The message ended. For 5 seconds, the entire planet was silent. Then the phone started ringing. Lisa Bennett was eating breakfast on the carrier USS Defiance when the alert came through. She dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but she was already running. By the time she reached the bridge, every screen showed the alien fleet. Her crew looked at her, waiting for orders. Lisa had commanded the Defiance for 2 years. She had trained for war her entire life. But this was different. This was not a drill. This was not a conflict with another nation. This was survival. "Get me a direct line to Fleet Command," she said. Her voice did not shake. "And wake up every sailor on this ship. We are going to war." In New York, President Helen Carter stood in the Situation Room. Around her, military leaders from every nation gathered through video screens. Some were angry. Some were afraid. All of them wanted answers. "What are our options?" asked the Chinese general. "We can surrender," said the British admiral. "We can try to negotiate. Or we can fight." Helen looked at each face on the screens. She thought about her children. She thought about every child on Earth. She thought about what surrender would mean: slavery, death, the end of everything humans had built over 10,000 years. "We fight," she said. "Send a message to every military base. Tell them to prepare for full mobilization. We have 48 hours. Let's use them." The Russian general smiled. It was not a happy smile. "What should we tell the aliens?" Helen looked at the image of the alien fleet. 700 ships. Weapons that could destroy cities. Technology humanity could barely understand. She thought about the American Revolution. She thought about the fighters at Thermopylae. She thought about every time humans had faced impossible odds. "Tell them to come and take it," she said. On Mars, Danny Cooper was deep underground when he got the emergency message. He was a civilian engineer, not a soldier. But he had spent 5 years building something that the military said would never be needed. A contingency plan. A last resort. A weapon so terrible that nobody wanted to think about it. Protocol Olympus. Danny called his team together. There were 37 engineers and scientists in the Mars facility. They all knew what Protocol Olympus meant. They had all signed papers saying they would never talk about it. Now those papers did not matter. "We have 48 hours, Danny said. "We need to activate the mass drivers. We need to start loading the projectiles. We need to calculate firing solutions for targets in Earth orbit." One of the younger engineers raised her hand. "Sir, if we fire from Mars toward Earth orbit, there is a chance we could hit Earth by mistake. Even a small error could kill millions." Danny nodded. "I know. But if we do nothing, the aliens will kill billions. We don't have a choice. We never did. The 48 hours passed quickly. Earth did not surrender. Every nation mobilized its military. Soldiers who had been enemies last week now stood together. Nuclear weapons were armed. Missiles were loaded. Ships moved into position. The planet prepared for war. War Master Theln watched the human preparations with interest. They were organizing faster than he expected. Their technology was primitive, but they had a lot of it. Still, this changed nothing. The Kyvex had conquered worlds with much stronger defenses. When the 48 hours ended, Theln gave the order. Begin the assault. Target their major cities. Show them what resistance costs. The alien fleet moved forward. Weapons charged. Targeting systems locked onto population centers around the globe. New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, Mumbai, São Paulo. Cities that held millions of people. Cities that had stood for hundreds of years. Cities that would be dust in minutes. The first energy beams lanced down from orbit. Buildings exploded. Streets melted. Fire spread through neighborhoods. People ran, but there was nowhere to go. The aliens had orbital superiority. They could hit any target on Earth. 3 million people died in the first hour. Jake Morrison watched from Sentinel-7 as the attacks began. His hands gripped the edge of his console so hard his knuckles turned white. He wanted to do something, but the station's weapons were designed for asteroids, not warships. He was helpless. Then his console beeped. A message from Earth Defense Command. Simple orders sent to every human weapon in orbit. All stations, you are weapons free. Fire at will. Make them pay for every inch, Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. His fingers flew across the controls. Sentinel-7 had mining lasers. They were meant to cut apart asteroids. But what works on rocks might work on ships. Target the nearest Kyvex destroyer, he ordered. Maximum power. Let's see how tough they really are. All around Earth, the counterattack began. It was chaotic. It was desperate. Satellites that had been built for communication became bombs. Mining vessels became missiles. Civilian ships rammed military targets. Orbital defense platforms that had never fired a shot in anger opened up with everything they had. The Kyvex had expected resistance, but not like this. Humans were using weapons that made no sense. They were sacrificing valuable assets for minimal damage. They were throwing away lives for tiny victories. It was illogical. It was wasteful. It was working. On the ground, the alien landing craft descended. They carried soldiers who had fought on 17 worlds, veterans of 100 battles, warriors who had never lost. They expected the humans to run. They expected panic. They expected surrender. They got bullets instead. Colonel Frank Hayes commanded what was left of the New York Defense Forces. Half the city was rubble. Fires burned everywhere. The sky was dark with smoke. But Hayes had been a Marine for 25 years. He had fought in wars on 3 continents. He knew urban combat. He knew how to make every building a fortress and every street a killing ground. Let them land, he told his soldiers. Let them get comfortable. Then we show them what humans do best. The first Kyvex soldiers stepped out of their landing craft expecting to occupy a broken city. Instead, they walked into hell. Explosives hidden in rubble, snipers in ruined buildings, ambushes from subway tunnels. The humans did not fight fair. They did not follow rules. They killed and vanished. They struck and retreated. They turned their own destroyed city into a weapon. By the end of the first day, the Kyvex controlled the landing zones. That was all. Every block beyond that was contested. Every street was paid for in blood. The veteran warriors who had conquered 17 worlds found themselves pinned down by humans who refused to give up. War Master Theln studied the casualty reports. In one day, he had lost 15 ships and 4,000 soldiers. That was more than he had lost in the previous 5 invasions combined. The humans were fighting with Theln had conquered 17 worlds. But now, for the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. The war had begun. The aliens had the advantage. They had better weapons, better ships, and more experience. But the humans had something the Kyvex did not understand. Something that would not show up on any tactical display. The humans were not fighting to conquer. They were fighting to survive. And humans had been surviving for a very long time. On every battlefield, in every burning city, on every orbital platform, the message was the same. Humans would not surrender. They would not submit. They would fight until the last bullet was fired and the last breath. The orbital battle lasted 3 days without stopping. Jake Morrison had not slept. None of his crew had slept. Coffee and fear kept them moving. Sentinel-7 was not built for war, but they were making it work anyway. The mining lasers had already destroyed 2 Kyvex destroyers, not bad for equipment meant to break rocks. But the aliens learned fast. They adjusted their shields. They changed their approach patterns. Now the lasers barely scratched their hulls. Jake looked at his tactical display. The Kyvex were surrounding the station. In 10 minutes, they would be in range. In 12 minutes, Sentinel-7 would be debris. "Sir," said his weapons officer, "we're out of options." Jake thought about his wife back on Earth. He thought about his daughter who was only 5 years old. He thought about everything worth fighting for. Then he made a decision that would either save his crew or kill them all. "Evacuate the station," he ordered. "Everyone into the escape pods. Set the reactor to overload." His crew stared at him. "Sir, if we overload the reactor while the Kyvex are this close, the explosion will destroy everything within 500 kilometers, including our escape pods." Jake smiled grimly. "I know. That's why we're going to launch the pods straight at the alien ships. They'll think we're trying to ram them. They'll shoot us down, and while they're busy with that, the reactor will blow." "Sir, the pods don't have enough shielding. When the reactor explodes, we'll still be caught in the blast." "Maybe," Jake said. "Or maybe we'll be far enough away. Either way, we're taking some of them with us." 5 minutes later, 37 escape pods shot toward the Kyvex fleet. The aliens opened fire immediately. They destroyed 12 pods before anyone could blink. But 25 pods kept going, spreading out, making it harder to target them all. Behind them, Sentinel-7's reactor reached critical mass. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. White light filled the space where the station had been. The shockwave traveled outward at incredible speed. It caught 6 Kyvex ships before they could move. 3 were destroyed instantly. 2 more were crippled. 1 survived, but with heavy damage. Jake's pod tumbled through space. The shockwave had caught them, but not as badly as he feared. His crew was alive. Hurt but alive. They had lost 17 people, but they had taken down 6 enemy ships with a mining station. Earth Defense Command picked them up 6 hours later. On the ground, Frank Hayes was learning something important about the Kyvex. They were strong. They were well-trained, but they were predictable. They followed procedures. They obeyed their training. They did not improvise. Humans improvised constantly. Hayes watched from a ruined office building as a Kyvex patrol marched down 5th Avenue. 12 soldiers in perfect formation. They checked every corner, every doorway exactly by the book. That made them easy to predict. Hayes spoke into his radio. "Team 3, they're coming your way. Remember, wait until they're all in the kill zone." The aliens reached the intersection. Right on schedule, they stopped to check the buildings. Right on schedule, their point man stepped forward to investigate a suspicious sound. Right on schedule, the entire street exploded. Hayes and his team had spent 6 hours rigging that intersection. Gas lines, explosives, even some old propane tanks from a restaurant. When it all went off at once, there was nothing left of the patrol but scorch marks. "Move out," Hayes ordered. "They'll send reinforcements. We need to be gone before they arrive." This was the new pattern. The Kyvex controlled the streets during the day, but at night the city belonged to the humans. They struck from darkness. They vanished before the enemy could respond. They turned urban warfare into an art form. The aliens had numbers. The aliens had technology. But the humans had home field advantage. They knew every subway tunnel, every sewer line, every hidden basement. They used the city itself as a weapon. At the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, Dr. Amy Richardson made a discovery that would change the war. She had been studying captured Kyvex soldiers for 2 weeks. Their biology was fascinating. Their immune systems were incredibly efficient. They could fight off almost any infection. Almost Earth had millions of bacteria and viruses that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. The Kyvex immune system had never encountered them. It did not know how to respond. When Richardson exposed alien tissue samples to common Earth microbes, the results were dramatic. They got sick. Not dead, but very, very sick. Richardson called the Pentagon. "I can make them sick," she said. "Not kill them. We're not going to use bioweapons. But I can make their soldiers so ill they can't fight. Respiratory infections, digestive problems, fever. Nothing permanent, but enough to take them out of action for weeks." The general on the other end was quiet for a moment. "How do we deliver it?" Airburst dispersal. We load modified missiles with microbe packages, explode them over Kyvex positions. The microbes spread through the air. The aliens breathe them in. 24 hours later, they're too sick to hold a weapon. Will it affect humans? These are common Earth bacteria. We're already exposed to them. Some people might get a mild cold. The Kyvex will be bedridden. Do it, the general said. Prepare as many packages as you can. We'll coordinate with ground forces to maximize effectiveness. In orbit, a young pilot named Greg Sullivan was about to become a legend. He flew an experimental fighter called the Wraith. It was fast. It was maneuverable. And it had one special feature that nobody had thought to use in combat before. It could use Earth's magnetic field as a slingshot. The scientists who designed it meant for this feature to save fuel during long patrols. Sullivan had a different idea. What if you use the magnetic field not to save fuel, but to gain speed? Massive speed. Dangerous speed. Speed that could turn a small fighter into a relativistic projectile. Sullivan looked at his targeting computer. A Kyvex capital ship hung in space ahead of him. It was massive. It had shields that could stop nuclear weapons. It carried 3,000 enemy soldiers. Sullivan armed every missile he had. Then he did something his instructors said was impossible. He flew the Wraith into a steep dive toward Earth. The magnetic field grabbed his ship. Pulled it faster, faster. The G-forces were crushing. His vision darkened at the edges. But he held the course. At the last possible second, he pulled up. The Wraith screamed upward, carrying momentum that physics said should not be possible. Sullivan fired every missile. Then he aimed his ship directly at the capital ship's bridge. The Kyvex tried to shoot him down. Their weapons missed. He was moving too fast. Their shields tried to stop him. He went through them like they were paper. At nearly 10% the speed of light, the Wraith hit the capital ship's bridge. The explosion was visible from Earth. A small sun appeared in orbit for 3 seconds. When it faded, the capital ship was gone. 3,000 enemy soldiers, hundreds of officers, a dozen commanders. All dead. Greg Sullivan was gone too. But his sacrifice destroyed the largest ship in the Kyvex fleet. And more importantly, it showed other pilots what was possible. Within a week, 50 more fighters would use the same tactic. The Kyvex started calling it the Ghost Strike. Their gunners could not track something moving that fast. Their shields could not stop it. Every Ghost Strike cost a human pilot, but every Ghost Strike destroyed a capital ship. War Master Thelen watched the reports with growing alarm. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had faced before. They were unpredictable. They were creative. They were willing to die in ways that made no tactical sense, but achieved devastating results. His forces controlled most of Earth's major cities. But every city was a battle. Every street cost blood. His soldiers were exhausted. His ships were damaged, and the humans showed no signs of giving up. Thelen pulled up the intelligence reports his scouts had dismissed before the invasion. Warnings from other species. Stories about human behavior. One line caught his attention now. The humans do not know when they are beaten. This makes them extremely dangerous. Thelen had thought this was cowardice from species who feared human expansion. Now he understood. It was not cowardice. It was a warning. The humans did not fight to win. They fought because surrender was not in their nature. They would rather die fighting than live as slaves. This changed everything. Conquering Earth would not be quick. It would not be easy. It might not even be possible. For the first time since the invasion began, Thelen considered withdrawal. But he dismissed the thought immediately. The hierarchy would see retreat as weakness. He would be executed. His family would be disgraced. There was no going back now. The Kyvex would have to win, no matter the cost. But deep in his mind, in a place he would not admit even to himself, Thelen was afraid. Because the humans were getting better at fighting. They were learning from every battle, adapting to every tactic, improving every day, and the Kyvex were running out of ships. On the USS Defiance, Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge and looked at what was left of her fleet. She had started the war with 12 ships. Now she had 4. But those 4 ships had learned how to fight aliens. They knew the weaknesses in Kyvex shields. They knew the blind spots in their targeting systems. They knew how to hurt them. New orders from Fleet Command, her communications officer reported. Operation Broken Arrow is approved. We're to target enemy supply lines in the outer system. 2 weeks into the invasion, Commander Stephen Blake stood in the briefing room and looked at a plan that would either win the war or get his entire team killed. Probably both. You want us to infiltrate the flagship, he said slowly. The heavily guarded, shield-protected, weapons-covered flagship that has 5,000 soldiers on board. The general nodded. That's correct. And you want us to upload a virus into their communication network. Correct again. Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide. The general smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Commander, everything we're doing is suicide. The difference is this suicide might actually work. Blake looked at his team. 12 men and women. Special operations. The best soldiers humanity had. They had volunteered for this mission knowing they probably would not come back. When do we leave? Blake asked. 6 hours. A civilian programmer named Nina Walsh has created the virus. She'll brief you on how to upload it. The rest is up to you. Nina Walsh was 24 years old and looked like she had not slept in a month. Probably because she had not. She had been working on this virus since the invasion started. It was the most complex code she had ever written. The virus doesn't destroy anything, she explained to Blake's team. It just listens. Every communication the Kyvex send will hear. Every order. Every report. Every tactical plan. You upload this and we'll know everything they're going to do before they do it. How do we upload it? Blake asked. Nina held up a small device. This is a universal interface adapter. Alien technology is different from ours, but data is data. Find any communication terminal on the flagship. Plug this in. The virus will upload automatically. Should take about 30 seconds. And if we get caught during those 30 seconds, Nina looked him straight in the eyes. Then we lose the war. The infiltration started with a captured Kyvex shuttle. Blake's team had stolen it during a raid 3 days earlier. They had killed the crew, copied their identification codes, and learned how to fly it. Now they were using it to approach the flagship as if they were just another supply run. This is Supply Shuttle 743 requesting permission to dock, Blake said in the Kyvex language. They had learned enough to fake basic communication. There was a long pause. Blake held his breath. If the Kyvex had changed their security codes, this was over before it started. Permission granted. Proceed to Docking Bay 7, Blake smiled. They were in. The flagship was enormous. Corridors stretched in every direction. Alien soldiers moved with purpose. Blake's team wore stolen Kyvex armor. It was uncomfortable and smelled terrible, but it hid their human shapes. As long as nobody looked too closely, they could pass for regular soldiers. They found a communication terminal on the 3rd deck. Blake stood guard while his tech specialist plugged in Nina's device. 30 seconds. That was all they needed. 20 seconds passed. The device blinked green. The upload was working. Then an alarm started screaming. Security breach on Deck 3, a voice announced in the Kyvex language. Intruders detected, Blake cursed. Somehow they had been discovered. Maybe a patrol saw through their disguise. Maybe a security camera caught something wrong. It did not matter now. How long? He shouted to his tech. 10 seconds! Kyvex soldiers poured into the corridor. Blake's team opened fire. The aliens had better armor, but humans had surprise. 3 aliens went down before they could react. Then the firefight began in earnest. 5 seconds. Blake threw a grenade down the corridor. The explosion bought them a few more precious moments. His team was taking casualties. They were outnumbered 50-1. But they just needed 5 more seconds. Done! The tech shouted. The virus is uploaded! Everyone move, Blake ordered. Back to the shuttle. They ran. They fought. They died. Of the 12 soldiers who started the mission, only 4 made it back to the shuttle. Blake was one of them. His tech was another. The other 2 were wounded so badly they could barely walk. The shuttle launched with alien weapons fire chasing them. Missiles exploded around them. Their shields failed. Their engines were hit. But they kept flying. They made it to Earth's atmosphere before the shuttle finally gave up and started falling. They crashed in the Pacific Ocean. A Navy destroyer picked them up 20 minutes later. Blake's first words were asking if the mission succeeded. Sir, the Navy captain said with a huge grin, we're receiving every Kyvex communication in the system. Every single one. Whatever you did, it worked. Nina Walsh did not celebrate. She sat in her underground facility and listened to alien communications. Within 1 hour, she knew more about the Kyvex invasion than their own commanders did. She knew which ships were damaged. She knew which units were low on ammunition. She knew where they planned to attack next. And Earth could plan. Accordingly, Lisa Bennett received new orders while preparing for Operation Broken Arrow. The intelligence was specific, detailed, perfect. The Kyvex supply depot was located in the asteroid belt, exactly where the communications intercept said it would be. Defenses were lighter than expected. Most of the guard ships had been pulled back to reinforce the attack on Earth. This was a golden opportunity. All ships, this is Bennett, she broadcast to her small fleet. We have one chance at this. The Kyvex are expecting us to defend Earth. They are not expecting us to go on the offensive. We're going to hit their supply depot hard and fast, destroy everything, leave nothing they can use. Then we get out before reinforcements arrive. The attack was brutal. Bennett's 4 ships came out of nowhere. The Kyvex guards never had a chance to respond. Human missiles tore through supply vessels. Railguns punched holes in storage facilities. Within 10 minutes, 6 months of Kyvex supplies were gone. Fuel, food, ammunition, spare parts, all of it destroyed. But the Kyvex were not stupid. Reinforcements arrived before the humans could escape. Bennett's fleet found itself outnumbered and surrounded. The battle that followed was vicious. The USS Defiance took heavy fire. Shields failed. Armor melted. Fires broke out on 3 decks. But Bennett kept fighting. Her ship was dying, but it was taking enemies with it. The Defiance destroyed 6 Kyvex supply ships before its engines finally gave out. All hands abandoned ship, Bennett ordered. We did what we came to do. Now let's get home. The crew evacuated. Bennett was the last one off as tradition demanded. She took one final look at her ship. The Defiance had been her home for 2 years. Now it was a burning wreck. But the mission succeeded. The Kyvex supply chain was broken. The invasion force was cut off from reinforcements. On Mars, Danny Cooper watched the long-range sensors with satisfaction. His mass drivers were ready. They had been calculating firing solutions for 2 weeks. Every tungsten rod was loaded. Every trajectory was planned. Now they just needed the right target. The intercepted Kyvex communications provided it. A battle group was gathering in the outer system. 50 ships preparing to bombard Earth's agricultural regions. They planned to starve humanity into surrender. Danny smiled. Target the battle group. Fire on my mark. The mass drivers launched their payload. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. They were not fancy. They had no explosives. They did not need explosives. At those speeds, kinetic energy was enough. The first rod hit a Kyvex battleship dead center. The ship simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy was so massive that matter turned to plasma. The second rod hit another ship. Same result, 10 rods, 10 ships, gone in seconds. The rest of the battle group scattered. They tried to run, but the mass drivers kept firing. 20 more ships were destroyed before the survivors managed to jump to faster-than-light speeds and escape. The plan to starve Earth was over before it began. War Master. Thelen sat in his command chair and tried to understand what was happening. His forces were supposed to be winning. They controlled most of Earth's cities. They had superior technology. They had more ships. They should be crushing the humans. Instead, everything was falling apart. His supply lines were destroyed. His battle group was annihilated. His soldiers on the ground were getting sick with infections that no medicine could cure. And somehow the humans seemed to know his plans before he gave the orders. Thelen pulled up the old intelligence reports again. The warnings about humanity. He read them carefully this time. Humans do not fight to win. They fight because they do not know how to stop. Human warfare has no rules. They will use any tactic, any weapon, any strategy if it gives them an advantage. They have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire history. Every human soldier is a product of 10,000 years of constant warfare. Thelen finally understood. The humans were not defending their world as amateurs forced into war. They were fighting as professionals who had been practicing for millennia. Every dirty trick, every desperate tactic, every impossible strategy, they had tried it all before. Against each other, the Kyvex had walked into a trap. Not a planned trap, but something worse. They had attacked a species that was better at war than any other species in the galaxy, because the humans had never stopped fighting. Even in peacetime, they studied war. They prepared for war. They invented new ways to kill. Thelen made a decision. He opened a secure channel to the hierarchy homeworlds. This is War Master Thelm. We need to discuss withdrawal. The humans. General Patricia Hayes stood before the Joint Chiefs of Staff and made a proposal that shocked everyone in the room. We need to authorize tactics that are currently banned by international law, she said calmly. Chemical weapons, bioweapons, orbital bombardment of civilian areas that the Kyvex are using as bases, torture of prisoners for information. Everything we agreed never to use. We need to use it now. The room erupted in arguments. Some generals were horrified. Others nodded slowly. President Helen Carter raised her hand for silence. General Hayes, Carter said quietly, are you asking me to throw away 100 years of human rights progress? No, ma'am, Hayes replied. I'm asking you to put those rights on hold until we win. The Kyvex are not bound by our laws. They will use any weapon, any tactic. If we fight with one hand tied behind our backs, we will lose. And if we lose, there will be no human rights left to protect. The room was silent. Everyone knew she was right. Everyone hated that she was right. Carter closed her eyes. She thought about her children. She thought about every child on Earth. She thought about what kind of world they would inherit if humanity lost this war. Approved, she said, but with one condition. The moment this war ends, we go back to our principles. We rebuild the rules. We hold ourselves accountable for what we're about to do. This is temporary. This is survival. This is not who we are. Hayes nodded. Understood, ma'am. Within hours, the new orders went out. No more restrictions. No more rules. Just one goal. Win. Commander Kyle Watson received his orders while the submarine USS Virginia cruised deep in the Atlantic. His orders were simple and terrible. The Kyvex had established a forward base in the Caribbean. It was protected by shields that conventional weapons could not penetrate. But Kyle had weapons that were anything but conventional. His team had been working on something new. They took captured Kyvex technology and wrapped it around human missiles. The result was a hybrid weapon that confused alien defenses. The shields could not tell if it was a kinetic projectile or an energy weapon. By the time they figured it out, it was too late. Target locked, his weapons officer reported. Firing solution ready. Fire, Kyle ordered. 6 missiles launched from the submarine. They traveled underwater for 30 miles, then broke the surface and flew toward the Kyvex base. The alien shields activated, but the hybrid weapons just passed through as if the shields did not exist. All 6 missiles hit. The base exploded in a fireball that was visible from space. 2,000 Kyvex soldiers died in seconds. Kyle did not celebrate. He just marked the mission as complete and started looking for the next target. There were still a lot of aliens to kill. Dr. Amy Richardson's biological countermeasures were deployed across every Kyvex-controlled city. Modified missiles exploded high in the atmosphere, releasing clouds of Earth bacteria. The microbes spread on the wind. The aliens breathed them in. Within 24 hours, 40% of ground forces were too sick to fight. The Kyvex medical officers had never seen anything like it. Their soldiers were collapsing with fevers and respiratory infections. Some were hallucinating. Others could not stand up without vomiting. It was not fatal, but it was completely incapacitating, and the humans did not wait. Frank Hayes led his forces in a massive counterattack across New York. The sick aliens could barely defend themselves. Block by block, building by building, the humans retook their city. It was brutal. It was merciless, but it worked. Within 1 week, every major city on Earth was back under human control. The Kyvex retreated to their ships. They abandoned their ground positions. They cut their losses and ran, but the humans were not done. Jake Morrison, promoted to captain after his sacrifice at Sentinel-7, now commanded a makeshift fleet of orbital defense platforms. They were not pretty. Half of them were held together with emergency repairs, but they worked, and they were angry. New orders from Fleet Command, his communications officer announced. We are authorized to engage any Kyvex vessel within the Earth-Luna system. Rules of engagement: destroy on sight. No warnings. No mercy. Jake looked at his tactical display. 30 Kyvex ships were trying to reach a safe distance to jump to faster than light speed. They thought they were retreating. They thought the battle was over. They were wrong. All stations, open fire, Jake ordered. Don't let a single one escape. The orbital platforms unleashed everything they had. Lasers, railguns, missiles. Even some weapons that had been built from captured alien technology. The Kyvex ships tried to defend themselves. They tried to fight back. But they were outnumbered and caught by surprise. 15 alien ships were destroyed before they could jump away. The rest escaped, but they were damaged and demoralized. They had come to conquer Earth. Now they were running for their lives. Nina Walsh sat in her facility and listened to the intercepted communications. The Kyvex were panicking. Their encrypted channels were full of desperate messages, ships reporting damage, soldiers begging for evacuation, commanders asking for reinforcements that would never come. And then she heard something that made her smile. War Master Theln himself, speaking on what he thought was a secure channel. "This is War Master Theln to Hierarchy Command. The invasion has failed. The humans are too strong, too adaptable, too ruthless. We cannot win this war. I am ordering a full withdrawal of all forces. We must leave the system immediately." Nina recorded the message and sent it to every military commander on Earth. The enemy was retreating. After weeks of fighting, after billions of dollars in damage, after 3 billion dead, the humans were winning. But General Patricia Hayes did not celebrate. She stood in the war room and looked at the strategic display. Yes, the Kyvex were retreating from Earth, but they still had several hundred ships. They were regrouping in the outer system. They might come back. They might warn other alien species. They might return with reinforcements. Hayes made a decision that would define humanity's future. "Send new orders to all fleet commanders," she said. "The Kyvex are not allowed to leave this system. They came here to exterminate us. We will show them what extermination really means. Hunt them down. Destroy every ship. Leave no survivors. The galaxy needs to learn what happens when you attack Earth." Some of her officers looked shocked. One admiral spoke up. "General, if we pursue them, we will be taking the offensive. This will no longer be a defensive war. We will be invaders." Hayes looked at him coldly. "They made us invaders when they killed 3 billion people. They made us monsters when they tried to destroy our world. Now we will be what they made us, and we will make sure they regret it." The orders went out. Every human warship, every fighter, every weapon that could reach space. They all had the same mission: find the retreating Kyvex and destroy them. The hunt began. Lisa Bennett had been rescued from her damaged ship and given command of a new vessel. The USS Retribution was not as large as the Defiance, but it was faster, deadlier, built specifically to hunt alien ships. Her fleet tracked the Kyvex to the asteroid belt. The aliens were trying to regroup, trying to organize a defensive position, but the humans did not give them time. Bennett's ships came out of the asteroids like ghosts. They struck hard and fast. They destroyed 10 enemy vessels before the Kyvex could even target them. The aliens tried to run again, but now there were human ships everywhere, above them, below them, behind them. Every escape route was blocked. Every direction led to more weapons. The Kyvex were trapped, and the humans showed no mercy. War Master Theln watched his fleet die. Ship after ship exploded on his display screens. Escape pods were destroyed as soon as they launched. Wounded vessels were finished off without hesitation. The humans were not taking prisoners. They were not offering terms. They were simply killing everything they could reach. Theln finally understood the warnings. The humans were not defending their home. They were demonstrating what happens when you threaten them. They were sending a message to the entire galaxy written in Kyvex blood: "Leave us alone or this will be you." Theln opened a communication channel to all human forces. He was ready to surrender, ready to beg for mercy, ready to do anything to save what was left of his fleet. But before he could speak, a human missile struck his flagship. The bridge exploded. Theln died without ever knowing if the humans would have accepted his surrender. It did not matter. The humans had already decided. No quarter. No prisoners. No mercy. The Kyvex hierarchy had arrived with 700 ships. They would leave with none. On Earth, President Helen Carter watched the battle reports and felt sick. She had authorized this. She had given permission for tactics that violated every principle she believed in. She had turned humanity into the monsters the Kyvex thought they were, but she also knew it was necessary. The galaxy needed to learn that Earth was not a target, that humans were not victims, that attacking humanity came with a terrible price. The war was almost over. The cleanup would take months. The rebuilding would take years. But humanity had survived. They had learned to fight in space. They had defeated an enemy with superior technology. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do when pushed too far. and now the galaxy would fear them. Frank Hayes stood in the ruins of New York and looked at the city he had fought so hard to defend. Half of it was destroyed. The other half was... The hunt lasted 3 weeks. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Foster flew his new Reaper-class fighter through the outer system. The Reaper was designed with one purpose: killing alien ships. It was fast. It was stealthy. It had weapons that combined human engineering with captured Kyvex technology, and Foster was very, very good at his job. His squadron tracked a Kyvex destroyer trying to reach the edge of the system. The alien ship was damaged and low on fuel. It was running on emergency power. But Foster's orders were clear. "No survivors. Squadron, spread out," Foster ordered. "Hit them from all sides. Don't give them time to target us." 8 Reaper fighters attacked as one. Their missiles struck the destroyer's engines. Their railguns punched through weakened armor. Within 2 minutes, the alien ship was breaking apart. Escape pods launched, but Foster's squadron destroyed those too. Orders were orders. Foster did not feel good about it. Shooting escape pods was against every rule of war he had been taught. But he remembered New York burning. He remembered the 3 billion dead. He remembered why the rules no longer applied. "Target destroyed," he reported, moving to next objective. All across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Human forces hunted down every Kyvex vessel they could find. Some aliens tried to surrender. The humans ignored them. Some tried to fight. They died. Some tried to run. They were caught and destroyed. The Kyvex had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest. They were learning the price of that mistake. Lisa Bennett commanded the USS Retribution as it chased the remnants of the Kyvex fleet toward Jupiter. Her tactical display showed 12 enemy ships. They were trying to reach the gas giant's gravity well to slingshot toward the outer system. If they succeeded, they might escape. Bennett was not going to let that happen. "All ships maximum acceleration," she ordered. "Cut them off before they reach Jupiter's orbit. If even one of them escapes, they'll warn the rest of the galaxy about our capabilities." Her fleet pushed their engines past safe limits. Warnings flashed on every screen. Engineers yelled about reactor temperatures. But they kept accelerating. They had to catch those ships. The Retribution reached firing range first. Bennett's weapons officer opened fire with everything they had: missiles, railguns, lasers. The nearest Kyvex ship tried to evade, but human targeting computers were faster. The alien vessel exploded, 1 down, 11 to go. The rest of Bennett's fleet arrived and joined the attack. For 20 minutes, space around Jupiter was filled with weapons fire. The Kyvex tried everything. They used Jupiter's moons as cover. They attempted to scatter in different directions. They even tried to fight back. Nothing worked. The human ships were too fast, too coordinated, too determined. One by one, the alien vessels died. The last Kyvex ship tried to ram the Retribution in a desperate final attack. Bennett simply moved out of the way and destroyed it with a single missile. "All targets eliminated," her tactical officer reported. "No survivors detected." Bennett sat in her command chair and felt nothing. No victory, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. She had been fighting for weeks without rest. Her ship was damaged. Her crew was exhausted, but the mission was not over yet. "Set course for the Kuiper Belt," she ordered. "Intelligence says there are more Kyvex ships hiding out there. We need to find them." On Earth, Danny Cooper watched the tactical displays from Mars. His mass drivers had been firing non-stop for 3 weeks. Every time the long-range sensors detected a Kyvex ship, he launched another tungsten rod at near light speed. The results were always the same. The target ceased to exist, but now his team was running out of ammunition. They had fired over 200 rods. Each one had to be precisely manufactured. Each one required careful calculations. They could not keep this up forever. "How many rods do we have left?" Danny asked his logistics officer. 17, sir, and we won't have more for at least a month. The manufacturing facilities on Mars can't keep up with demand." Danny nodded. 17 shots. They had to make them count. Save them for high-value targets only. Capital ships. Command vessels. Anything that might carry important intelligence. Jake Morrison's orbital fleet was hunting in the asteroid belt when they found something unexpected. A Kyvex repair facility hidden inside a large asteroid. It was full of damaged ships, spare parts, and hundreds of alien technicians. It was the last major Kyvex presence in the solar system. "Sir, they're broadcasting a surrender signal." his communications officer reported. "They want to negotiate." Jake thought about it. These were technicians, not soldiers. They were trying to repair their ships so they could go home. They were offering to surrender. Under normal circumstances, he would accept. Prisoners could provide intelligence. They could be exchanged. They could be treated humanely, but these were not normal circumstances. "Ignore the surrender," Jake ordered. "Destroy the facility. All ships open fire." His crew hesitated. Jake could see the doubt in their eyes. But the orders came from the top. No survivors, no exceptions. The orbital platforms fired. The asteroid facility exploded in a massive detonation that lit up the belt. Hundreds of Kyvex technicians died instantly. So did any chance of mercy. Jake watched the explosion and wondered what kind of person he was becoming, what kind of species humanity was becoming. They had crossed a line. Once you start killing prisoners and ignoring surrenders, where do you stop? But then he remembered the satellite footage of the first attacks. Cities burning, children dying, 3 billion lives ended in minutes. The Kyvex had crossed that line first. Humanity was just following them across it. Frank Hayes was back on Earth training new recruits. The war was almost over in space, but there was still work to do on the ground. Cleaning up, rebuilding, preparing for the next threat, because there would be a next threat. The galaxy now knew that Earth existed, and some species would see humanity's victory as a challenge. "Listen up," Hayes told his students. "The Kyvex made a mistake. They thought we were weak because we're divided. They thought we were primitive because our technology is young. They thought we would surrender because they had bigger guns. They were wrong on all counts." He pointed at a holographic display showing human military evolution. "We've been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Every weapon we have, we invented to kill each other. Every tactic we use, we learned fighting ourselves. We're not good at war because we had to be. We're good at war because we chose to be. Because humans are the species that turns everything into competition, including killing." A young recruit raised her hand. "Sir, are we the bad guys?" Hayes paused. It was a good question. An important question. "No," he said finally. "We're not the bad guys. We're the survivors. The galaxy is full of species that want to take what we have. Some want our resources. Some want our planet. Some just want us dead. We can't stop them from trying. But we can make sure they fail. And we can make sure the price is so high that nobody else tries." Near the edge of the solar system, Lieutenant Sandra Price chased the last known Kyvex vessel. It was a scout ship, small and fast. It had been running for days trying to reach the boundary where it could jump to faster than light speed. Sandra's Reaper fighter was faster. She caught up to the scout ship just as it was preparing to jump. Her missile struck its engine at the perfect moment. The jump sequence failed. The ship tumbled through space, disabled but not destroyed. Sandra moved in close. Her weapons were locked on. One shot and this would be over. The last Kyvex ship in the solar system would be destroyed. But then she saw something on her sensors. The scout ship was broadcasting. Not a surrender, not a plea. It was sending a message to somewhere far away, warning its homeworlds, telling them about the humans, about their weapons, about their ruthlessness. Sandra made a split-second decision. She did not destroy the ship immediately. She followed it through its jump. If the Kyvex were sending a warning, she would make sure it never arrived. The jump took seconds but felt like hours. Sandra's fighter emerged in an unknown system. Strange stars, strange planets. And in the distance, the damaged scout ship was still broadcasting its warning. Sandra armed every weapon she had. Then she destroyed the scout ship with a single burst of railgun fire. The warning message cut off mid-transmission. For a moment, Sandra looked at the alien stars around her. She was farther from Earth than any human had ever been. She was alone in a hostile galaxy, but she had completed her mission. The last Kyvex ship was destroyed. The last warning was silenced. She turned her fighter around and jumped back toward home. When she arrived back in the solar system, Earth Defense Command was waiting. They had been monitoring her the whole time. They had watched her make the decision to follow the scout ship. They had watched her destroy it in an unknown system. They knew what she had done. Sandra expected to be disciplined. She had left her patrol area. She had jumped into unknown space. She had risked a valuable fighter and pilot on a personal decision. Instead, they gave her a medal. "You showed initiative," the Admiral told her. "You understood what was at stake. The Kyvex warning could have brought more enemies to Earth. You stopped it, You're a hero. Sandra did not feel like a hero. She felt like someone who had killed a lot of people, which was exactly what she had done. 6 months after the last Kaivex ship was destroyed, Earth looked different. The planet was scarred. Cities were still being rebuilt. Millions of people were still displaced. But something else had changed too. Something deeper. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. The old divisions did not matter anymore. National borders still existed on paper, but nobody cared about them. Everyone was human now. Everyone was a survivor. Everyone knew they had come within hours of extinction. President Helen Carter stood before the newly formed United Earth government. Representatives from every nation sat in the assembly hall. Some had been enemies before the invasion. Now they worked together because they had no choice. The galaxy was dangerous. Earth needed to be strong. That meant unity. We face a choice, Carter said. We can rebuild what we had before and hope nobody attacks us again. Or we can build something new. Something stronger. Something that ensures we will never be victims again. The chamber was silent. Everyone knew what she was really asking. Do we become conquerors? Do we spread through the galaxy with weapons and fear? Do we become like the Kaivex? I propose, Carter continued, that we build a fleet. Not for conquest, but for defense. A fleet so large and so powerful that nobody will dare attack Earth again. A fleet that can protect not just our world, but any world that asks for help. We will not be the galaxy's bullies. We will be the galaxy's defenders. The vote was unanimous. Within days, shipyards on Earth, Mars, and Luna started working around the clock. They were building warships. Hundreds of them. Some used human technology. Some used captured Kaivex designs. Most used a combination of both. General Patricia Hayes was appointed Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. It was a title that did not exist before the invasion. Now it was the most important military position in human history. Hayes stood in the command center and looked at the construction schedules. In 1 year, Earth would have more warships than the Kaivex had brought to attack them. In 5 years, humanity would have the largest military fleet in known space. Are we doing the right thing? Her aide asked. Building all these weapons? Hayes thought about it. I don't know, she admitted. But I know what happens if we don't. We get attacked again. And maybe next time we don't survive. This is the price of survival in a hostile galaxy. We have to be strong enough that nobody wants to test us. Dr. Amy Richardson was appointed to lead the new department of xenobiology. Her job was to study every alien species humanity might encounter, learn their biology, find their weaknesses, make sure humans were never caught unprepared again. Richardson felt uncomfortable with this. Before the war, she had been a researcher, someone who studied diseases to cure them. Now she was weaponizing biology, finding ways to hurt aliens without killing them. It went against everything she believed in, but she remembered the 3 billion dead. She remembered how close Earth came to losing. She understood why this work was necessary, even if she did not like it. We're not making weapons, she told her team. We're making insurance. Hope we never need it, but if we do, we'll be ready. Lisa Bennett recovered from her injuries and was given command of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. This was something completely new for humanity. Before the invasion, humans had explored maybe a dozen nearby star systems. Now they were planning to establish a presence across hundreds of light years. Bennett's mission was simple on paper but complicated in practice. Explore, map, make contact with alien species, establish alliances, show the galaxy that humanity was a power that could not be ignored. We're not going out there to make friends, Bennett told her fleet commanders. We're going out there to make sure everyone knows what happens if they mess with Earth. We're the demonstration. The warning, the reminder that humanity survived and got stronger. Nina Walsh became the head of Signals Intelligence. Her virus had won the war by giving humans access to every Kaivex communication. Now she was building a network to monitor the entire galaxy. Every radio signal, every data transmission, every communication between alien species. What she discovered troubled her. The Kaivex had not acted alone. Other species had encouraged them to attack Earth. Some wanted to test human capabilities. Some wanted to eliminate a potential rival before humanity became too strong. Some just wanted Earth's resources. Nina reported her findings to the government. We have enemies we don't even know about yet. Species that see us as a threat. Species that might attack us before we can defend ourselves. We need to know who they are and what they're planning. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral. He now commanded the home fleet, responsible for defending Earth and the inner solar system. It was a huge responsibility. If another invasion came, he would be the first line of defense. But Jake had a different concern. We're building weapons, training soldiers, preparing for the next war. But what if the next war doesn't come? What if we become so strong that everyone leaves us alone? What do we do with all this military power? General Hayes had an answer. We use it to help others. There are species out there being bullied by empires like the Kyvex, species that need protection. We offer them alliance. We defend them. And in return, they help us understand the galaxy better. It's not conquest. It's cooperation backed by the threat of force. Some people called it imperialism with a nice label. Others called it necessary. The debate would continue for decades. Far from Earth, at the edge of the galaxy, a council of very old aliens met to discuss the humans. The archivists had observed galactic civilization for millions of years. They collected information. They recorded history. They did not interfere. But humanity concerned them. The senior archivist updated the human file. Species classification, humanity. Threat level, Omega. This is the highest threat rating we have ever assigned. Not because they are inherently violent, but because they are adaptable. They learn. They improve. They overcome, another archivist spoke. Should we recommend they be contained? Quarantined? Eliminated before they spread? The senior shook his head. No. That would require a military force larger than anything the galaxy has seen. And it might fail. The Kyvex were not weak. They brought everything they had. Humanity destroyed them completely. No, we do not try to contain the humans. We simply watch. And we warn others to leave them alone. The archivists added a new entry to their database, a warning that would be broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. A simple message in 1,000 languages. Avoid the Sol system. The humans are not to be disturbed. They have proven themselves as apex predators. Any species that attacks them will face extinction. This is not a threat. This is an observation based on data. The Kyvex hierarchy attacked with 700 warships. None survived. Learn from their mistake. On Earth, a memorial was built. It stood in what used to be New York, in a park that had been completely destroyed during the invasion. The memorial was simple. A black wall with 3 billion names. Every person who died during the invasion was listed. The wall stretched for miles. At the center of the memorial was an inscription. Representatives from several alien species attended the dedication ceremony. They were species that had reached out to humanity after the war. Species that wanted alliance. Species that understood the galaxy was dangerous and Earth had proven it could survive. The inscription read, "They came to exterminate us. They learned why the galaxy whispered warnings about humanity. We are not the species you fight. We are the species you avoid. We are not the ones who start wars. We are the ones who finish them." Danny Cooper attended the ceremony from Mars. He watched through a video link. He saw his sister standing near the memorial. She had lost her husband in the first attacks. She had survived, but she was changed. Everyone was changed. Danny sent her a message. "We've changed. The whole species has changed. We went to the stars expecting to find friends. Instead, we found the truth. We're the monsters other species tell stories about. Maybe we always were. Maybe the isolation of Earth was the galaxy's way of protecting itself from us," his sister replied. "We're not monsters. We're survivors. There's a difference. Monsters enjoy cruelty. We did what we had to do. We'll live with the guilt. We'll remember the cost. But we survived. That's all that matters." As human ships began spreading through the galaxy, the message became clear. Earth was no longer hiding. Humanity was no longer weak. The galaxy had forced them to become warriors. Now the galaxy would live with the consequences. Within a year, 20 species requested alliance with Earth. They were species threatened by predatory empires, species that needed protection. Species that understood humanity had both the power and the will to defend them. Not everyone was happy about this. Some species saw human expansion as a threat. They began forming their own coalitions, planning their own strategies. The galaxy was becoming divided. Those who allied with humanity, those who opposed them, and those who tried to stay neutral. Nina Walsh monitored it all. She listened to every communication. She tracked every movement. She reported to the government about rising tensions. about species that might attack, about alliances that were forming against humanity. "We're becoming what we fought against," she warned President Carter. "We're becoming the dominant military power. The species that everyone,